What's up, you guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Layla Lynn TV. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you go ahead and subscribe and click the bell so that you're notified of every new episode that I post. Some of you may have heard, since it's been all over the news, that televangelist Jesse Duplantis has asked for donations to buy a $54 million jet. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but if you're familiar with Jesse Duplantis' ministry, then you may already know that he is what is considered to be a prosperity preacher, which means in the simplest terms that he preaches that the more money believers give to the church, the more God will bless them. So to preachers like Jesse Duplantis and Creflo Dollar, for example, luxuries like private jets are not at odds with Jesus' teaching of moderation and humility. Jesse Duplantis explains this in this video that we're about to get into, and then we'll get into what gospel artist Kirk Franklin had to say about all this.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jesse Duplantis. Thank you for tuning into This Week with Jesse. We're going to be talking about aircraft. You know, I've owned 3 different jets in my life, and I used them and just burning them up for the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, some people believe that preachers shouldn't have jets. I really believe that preachers ought to have and go on every available voice, every available outlet to get this gospel preached to the world. Now, I talk about this in a lot of my messages, and I want you to see this if we can, Caleb. Get it back. This is the very first plane that I purchased for the Lord back in December 1994. And I said where I began. And then the second one I purchased was in January 2004, where I used to be. The one I'm flying right now, and it's been with me 12 years. I purchased it in January 2006, where I am. Now, I want you to get a shot of this one, Caleb. Now, this is the Star Trek Enterprise. This way I'm going. Praise God, what I believe in God for. Let me just say this. We're believing God for a brand new Falcon 7X so we can go anywhere in the world one stop. Now, people say, my Lord, can't you go with this one? Yes, but I can't go at one stop. And you see, if I can do it with one stop, I can fly it for a lot cheaper because I have my own fuel farm. And that's what's a blessing of the Lord. But this one here, I have to stop, and then you pay those exorbitant prices for jet fuel all over the world. We've asked the Lord Jesus Christ, and we're believing God. In fact, he told me, Jesse, it was one of the greatest statements the Lord ever told me. He said, Jesse, you want to come up where I'm at? And I said, what do you mean? He said that before you ask, I'll answer. Isaiah 65:24. I said, yes, Lord. He said, I want you to believe me for a Falcon 7X. So I said, okay. But the first thing I thought of was how I'm going to pay for it. And then that great statement that he told me in 1978 flooded into my mind and said, Jesse, I didn't ask you to pay for it. I asked you to believe for it. Now think about that for a minute. So I like all people to know exactly what I'm doing in this ministry. We don't hide nothing whatsoever at all. I am a blessed man. You're looking at a blessed man. And we never ask you to give something that me and Kathy don't give ourselves. We believe in that. And that's what it's all about. So think about this. This was paid cash. This was paid cash. This was paid cash. And the new one's going to be paid cash also. Now, let me make this announcement so everybody can understand it. I don't own the plane. This belongs to the ministry. If Jesus tarries and I go by the way of the grave, the next person that's going to take this ministry will use that. If you'll switch around, I want them to see this picture here. This is the picture of all 3 aircraft that we've owned at one time. It's not about possessions. It's about priorities. Now watch this. This is the one we're flying right now. This one is still in ministry. This one is still in ministry. Isn't that amazing? Every one of the planes. This here now, Pastor Happy Caldwell, Little Rock, Arkansas, is flying that plane. Mike Mealy is using this plane here to minister to people in Central America, and then the plane that I use now to preach the gospel. But I tell you what, we want that 7X. We're believing God for it. And I tell you what, if you pray about it, I believe God will speak to you about something, and you'll be blessed by it. And you know what? Like I said, we don't ask you to do something that we don't do. And I mean that sincerely.
So that is Jesse Duplantis' explanation of how this $54 million jet will be purchased and used. And here's what Kirk Franklin had to say. Kirk posted a photo of an article about Jesse Duplantis' request for donations for the jet, and he captioned it, "This is Jesse Duplantis. a televangelist who has 4 planes and is now telling us that Jesus wants us to buy him another one. I'm posting this because now that we see popular culture stand up to the injustices in mainstream society, I believe the church should do the same for its own as well. We should take the lead when there is an abuse of power that affects our message to the masses. Our silence can be as loud as the bigotry and racism we see in the public square. Many of these, quote, ministries built their wealth on the backs of poor, rural minorities that put their trust in the hands of God's shepherds, quote unquote, only to see the prosperity benefit those doing the preaching. Again, there are great Christian leaders, and there's nothing wrong with having a plane, but if the burden falls on the less fortunate, and greed is a check written by those drowning in socio-economic rivers of systemic disparities, God is not flying that plane. So what do you think? Based on your beliefs, do you think God is leading Jesse Duplantis to ask his followers to purchase this $54 million jet? Or do you agree with Kirk Franklin that this is an abuse of power on the part of Jesse Duplantis and that God is not in this? Leave a comment and let me know.